First, what we're learning tonight, first blot. Second blot is also fine, but the first blot is really good geschmack. Total geschmack. Okay. Lulav hagazul, a stolen lulav. A yavesh, a dry lulav. Possible they're both no good. Shasher comes from a tree which was worshipped. Or dachas, a tree in a city which has been condemned that all of its property must be burned. Possible it's no good. Niktam rosho, if the top of the lulav has been snapped off. Nivu to olive, if its leaves are already divided from the spine. Possible it is no good. Nifu do olive, if they've not divided completely, they're just somewhat separate. In other words, they don't go out like this, just a little bit, so then it's still okay. Then it's still kosher. Rabbi Yamali have to bind it together on top. Tzinehar barzel is where the leaves are not fully developed yet. In other words, each leaf doesn't come up to its full height of the lulav like ours do. They don't come to full height, but they come, they rise pretty high and they overlap. And Tzinehar barzel, they don't overlap, right? Each leaf ends, and then another leaf starts on top, another leaf on top. It's not as fully developed.
It's not tapered.
It's not tapered, right? Kisheros, it's kosher. Kolu of sheish ba shlosha tvachim yidei nanebo. Any lulav which has 3 tvachim, in order to shake it, is kosher, and the Gemara is going to say that that's not an accurate statement. Tai Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia says, "L'kachtem lochem, take for you, mishalochem, yours, v'lo gozel, not stolen." Am Rabbi Levi. The drosh is only in Yerushalmi, it's not in the Bavli. Zeshu noita lulav gozel lamau doime. What if somebody takes a lulav gozel now, a stolen lulav analogous to? Lechat shekibet es hashil to antamchu yechad. It's like somebody who gives the governor a very wonderful, exquisite dish, cooked dish. V'nim mishlo. It turns out that he stole it from the governor's kitchen. So the same thing, the guy who takes a lulav hagazul, it's not his. He's not giving from his own, right? He's giving from somebody else's. Amru, they said, oil is that. It's woe to this guy. Shenasa sanigoro katigoro, that his defense attorney became his prosecuting attorney. So it's interesting. Again, this is not because of mitzvah abba ba'avera, right? The Bavli uses mitzvah abba ba'avera. The Yerushalmi says, "En kategar nasu sanegor," right? Which means don't take a prosecuting attorney as a defense attorney, or vice versa. Don't make that from a defense attorney a prosecuting attorney. So it's interesting because it's not exactly the same svara, right? Mitzvah bar ba'avera has all sorts of parameters when the avera falls off, but here it's more of a svara of do not take something which is hypocritical. All right, I'm not sure if there's an afkamina between the two, but it's an interesting distinction. Shofar shalakum. Now here comes the really interesting part. Shofar akum. You have a shofar.
Excuse me. The nafkina might be that there's no say.
What do you mean?
Well, if you stole it, so mitzvah bar me'avera.
Yeah.
So lava nitakase, you give back.
Yeah, but then you still can't use it. It's not yours. You still can't use it. When you give it back to you, you still have to buy it from him. Regardless, you're still going to have to do something after that in order to be able to use it, because it has to be yours. It can't be even borrowed. The first day, so you can't even borrow lulav. So I'm not sure that'll make a difference. But look at this. Shofar akum. A shofar which belonged to Avodah Zarah, which only dachsa belonged to the city which is both condemned to death. Rabbi Lezer Omer kosher. Let's say it's kosher. Tana Rabbi Chia kosher. Chia learned it's kosher. Tana Rabbi Yeshua apostle. Now in our Mishnah it said lulav is no good, right? Hakomo dim lulav shu apostle. Ma bein shofar, ma bein lulav. Why is a shofar from Avodah Zarah or a shofar of Irni Dachas no good, but good? We're sorry, but lulav is not. So it says the word kafal gechilik. Look at this. So I'm Rabbi Yossi. Lulav ksiv. It says ulkachtan lochem mishel lochem. It's got to be yours. The lo mishel iser hanoya. It can't be something which is forbidden in benefit. But here yom trua yelochem. You don't have to have the shofar. You don't even have to have the trua. You have to make for yourself a day of trua. Mikom makom. In other words, by lulav, you got the chefza is the lulav, and you have to lulav has to be yours. But here the chefza is not a shofar, not even a trua. It's a day of trua you have to have. A day of trua, you don't have to own something. You don't own a day, so it means that the chefza is independent. The chefza of the mitzvah is independent of the shofar itself. The shofar is just the means by which you create a yom trua. And the Yom Trua is independent. Of course, the Yom Trua doesn't have to be affiliated or owned by anybody. It's a beautiful, beautiful svara.
You designate your own Yom Trua.
Right.
Lachem. So it's
right. That Yom Trua.
It's like Mekadosh Yisrael V'Hazman.
That's right. I tap into the Yom Trua which exists in the. That's right. And I have a shaykhus to it. It's a beautiful, beautiful svara. Now, there's a sub svara here which I should note that the Yerushalmi says here. It's got to be lochem and not osir ba'noah. Now, there's a very, very big machlokes among the Rishonim, the Achronim. Can I own something which is osir ba'noah? Is it mine? In other words, let's say it's avodah zarah, it's got to be burnt, but it's something which belonged hitherto to me. Am I considered to own it? Right. Yeah. So the question is a tremendous machlokes among Rishonim, Achronim. Big Sheish speaks about it. So the question is whether the Isser HaNoah says if I can derive benefit from it, can I still be considered an owner of it? Or is the ownership of an object defined as the usage thereof, and since I can't use it, I'm not the owner of it? Do you see the Chakira? So here you see clearly the Yerushalmi holds that if something's also by no, I don't own it. It can't be lochem, right? Because Yerushalmi should have said that since it's avodah zarah, I don't own it, right? But that's the Yerushalmi throws in the middle step. It says it's also by no, and therefore I do not own it. You see that? So the Yerushalmi holds something which is also by no, there's no ownership in. That's quite clear from the Yerushalmi. Okay, says the Gemara. Let's say a different distinction. Tamon begufo yotze. He doesn't go as far as the previous one. He said, but it's a similar idea. He says by lulav yotze with the holding of lulav. That's the mitzvah. But here bekolo hu yotze by shofar. It's not so much the yom trua yelochem idash the day of trua, but l'maisa it's the same idea. The kol is an abstract thing, and because yotze you really yotze by shofar through shomei konen, right? Now the thing is, by shofar it's more than any other mitzvah, because by mikra megillah, say, the guy who reads is being yotze through kriya. Everybody else is yotze because of shemei ka'onet. But by trua, even the guy who blows is only yotze because he hears what he's saying, and that hears what he's blowing, and that's why we make the bracha. Anybody pay attention ever to the bracha we make? The shema kol shofar, right? Because the idea is to hear, not to create. So it's a unique kind of mitzvah in that sense. So since that's the case, so therefore certainly the kol here, there's no iser ba'noah, right? It's the whole mitzvah is the kol. You think there's any kol which is osir ba'noah? There's no such thing. You cannot say a voice is osir ba'noah. No such thing. Now it's a concept of kol b'isha erva. They're forbidden pleasures, but it's not that the voice is osir ba'noah. You're not allowed to derive hanoah from the voice. It's two separate things. Okay. Mapli, what's the machlokas? B'shagozla meshupeh. When you stole a lulav and it was already cut, it was already trimmed. But if I stole it and then I trimmed it myself, then I can own it. I own it, and it's a tirtak would be enough. If you hold it's mitzvah ba'aver and I change it and I make it my own, so it's still mitzvah ba'aver because it came to my hands of Beiser. That's explicit in the Bavli. But the Yerushalmi holds not concept mitzvah ba'aver. But rather, it has to be a kind of object which is not mine to give to the king is hypocritical, right? But the halach is, once it's been yeush, the original owner is given up hope beginning back, and the shinui, the object has been changed. And here it's a shinui maisa, right? Because I trimmed the lulav, so I acquire it. and I have to pay him back, not the lulav itself, which now belongs to me, since it's not the same lulav I stole. Rather, I pay him back money. So therefore, according to the Yerushalmi, at this point I can use it. Even though I stole it, I didn't have Avera to get it, but now it's a different object, right? Because then the problem is not mitzvah bar ba'avera, because it would still be mitzvah bar ba'avera, but rather the problem is that it's not mine. How can I give the governor something which really belongs to him? Well, now it is mine, because the Torah said, oh, you did here, there was Yerushalmi Sukkah, and now it belongs to you, you have to pay him back money. Okay? That's very good. Gaza lulav, mikan, vahadas mikan. You stole lulav from one guy, and a hadas from another guy, and an arava mikan. You care enough to do the mitzvah. You have to give it. It's a Jewish ganef. He steals lulav. So he steals a lulav from here, hadas mikan and an arava mikan. So in that case, then he joins them together. So it's not considered enough of a shinui. In other words, he stole them independently, and now he put them all together. It's not enough of a shinui that he's considered to acquire it.
No, they could be taken apart just as easily.
That's what I was going to say. Nishmini min ado. Let's not from here. Sukkah Gazula stole. What's the problem?
No, just look up for a second.
You look bewildered.
No, I was actually thinking about the different things that we learned up to now. That's all.
Okay, Nishmini min ado. Let's start from here. Sukkah Gazula.
Bewildering.
Sukkah Gazula.
Don't look up anymore.
Is tani, those who learn kshera. You stole a sukkah. Some say you're kosher. Is tani psula. So it depends. Rabbi Simon Shem, Rabbi Shulman Levi said, "Mandamar kshera." You said it's kosher. B'shegos al karka. If I put my sukkah in your backyard, I'm still yotze, because I don't have to own the land underneath it. I didn't steal it from you, really. I didn't take your land away from you. I'm just making use of it. I'm a squatter, so that's okay. Mandamar psula b'shegos al psal. He said it's possible when I stole the schach, or I stole the structure of the sukkah. Obviously, that's no good. Says the Gemara. So v'efshel shloi kosher. When you steal schach, don't you tie down the schach? If you tie down the schach, so it should be shnei ma'isa, right? It changes it. When you tie schach, it actually changes it,
You cannot tie
right?
it.
Also, it's more says. So the Gemara's first kasha. So you see that shnei ma'isa doesn't help. Says more no. You just set it in place. You didn't actually tie it in place. So the same thing would be true about the lulav. That since you could put it back, so therefore it's not considered you acquired the lulav if you just tie it together. Rabban the Kisam Shem Yochanan said Beinzeh, and it says possible. It's a typo. It should be Ksheira, the Korbanei Gilad and Ephraim say it's kosher. And this is in fact the Bavli says that there's a takana the Rabbanan. It's called takana Sashavim. In order to make it easy for people to do tshuva, once you construct something with stolen property, you don't have to destroy a building in order to give it back. According to the strict letter of Allah, you would have the beam, that's right. And they apply that to sukkah as well. Even though sukkah it's only up for 7 days, those 7 days you don't have to destroy your sukkah. So if Rabbanan actually came and said that this sukkah is kosher, it's really yours for those 7 days.
That's al tanai that you're giving it.
Yeah, once you destroy it. But not for those 7 days you have it. So Ezuk Zulab, so what goes is possible. What goes possible? Kol shenichlas betel sukkah shel chaver shlo mitaito. You built a sukkah and I kick you out of your sukkah. So that's causal and that's possible. Now, the Gra says that it's only possible to Rabbanan. Al chatchila, not b'diavad. Even in this case, even though it says possible, it's preferable not. And the Raya of the Gra, I think, is the next case. Traces Reed has a lot of difficulty with this. But the Raya of the Gra is, I think, the next case. It says, Gahada, like this case, Gamliel Zuga, Avale Metalago Shuka. Gamliel Zuga, that was his name, made a sukkah in the marketplace. He, was the Chad Lubavitcher, made a sukkah in the middle of Daily Plaza, right? So he made a sukkah. What?
Zuga.
Your name's
Zuka, right? So Zuka here. Avale matlago Zuka. Avale Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Rabbi Shimon Lakish. That's why Avale mantra who permit you to put it here. So therefore, you shouldn't do it now. But this is the case where we clearly say in Amud Aleph that you yaitze but the evet, right? If you put your sukkah in somebody else's property, you yaitze because karka and zealous. So here too, Hashem and Lakish is really just telling him, l'chatchila, you shouldn't do it. It's not proper. Who gave you permission to put up your sukkah when it's a rabbi? And so too, then when it says possible that you throw some of my neighbor out of his sukkah and I use his sukkah, it only means possible l'chatchila. It's not nice. But the ever ambulance.
It's carjacking the sukkah.
Right, carjacking the sukkah. Okay? Yavish Pasal, another amazing drush in the Yerushalmi, but I think this is similar to the Bavli here. Yavish Pasal, Rabbi Abishar, Rabbi Yisrael Bar Pazi said, Yavish Pasal, why is it dry Ula Pasal? Al Shem Lo Amesim Yahalu Ko. Dead people can't praise God. Who's dead here? The Lulav. It's a dead Lulav. Dead Lulaving can't praise God. You need a Lulav to say Hallow. Right? Lo Amesim Yahalu Ko. They can't say Hallow. Okay, so the Bavli says it's possible because not hodar. It has to be muhudar, right? We learn from Priyat Sador. It has to be muhudar. So that's what the Yerushalmi says. Bavli says, but the Yerushalmi says lo amesim alukot. I don't. That's probably very similar. I don't know if there's any nafkamina, but that's what that's the difference. Time in the expression. Rabbi says the dry lulav is kosher. Rabbi said I'll bring you proof. In the cities by the sea, Mauritian lulavain libnain, they used to give the lulavin to their kids as an inheritance for the next generation. Amrulos, they said, hey, lamedim yishasat chok. That was there was hard to get lulavin there, so that was a shasat chak. Normally you don't do it. Bon kumi Rabbi Avina. Now they asked for Rabbi Avina. Yavshot tzitziso mao. The tzitzis of the lulav when dry. It's interesting language. The tzitzis here means the fringe, and here the fringe means the top leaf. You know, top leaf is more sensitive in halacha. It's called the tyoimis in the Bavli. It's more sensitive in halacha than the rest of the leaves. So therefore, most lulav is not possible until most of the leaves go dry, except if the middle leaf goes dry. So what's the status? The middle leaf goes dry. Says he responded with a question. Well, of course it should be possible. What's the difference between this and one which snapped off? Right? They should both be possible. So he says, no, it's not. There is a difference. If it's dry, so it could still be harder because in general the image of lulav is a nice one. But if it's snapped off, then it's not harder anymore. So that's his question, and we didn't really resolve it. But perhaps he can resolve from the next case. Rabbi Moluch, interesting name. I don't remember that name for elsewhere. Did I ever tell you about the Rogachover? Rogachover, the Rogachover discovered that the Yerushalmi Sukkah was forged.
Oh. Yeah. Which one was that?
Yeah.
Someone wrote
because there wasn't a...
Yeah, but how do Yerushalmi, how the Rogachover term was forged?
Well, because every Gemara has a new rabbi, one rabbi...
Right. There were no new rabbis in it. All the rabbis said every Masechta in Shas, and I guess in Yerushalmi too, has a Amor which doesn't appear anywhere else in Shas.
Really?
Yes. And in the Yerushalmi Akachim, there are only known Amoraim who appeared. So he was so good in actually making names which appeared elsewhere that the Rogachover said that's proof that it's a forgery.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. So
something like that in anthropology too.
What is it?
They discovered the bones of bones where half of it were an ape and half of it were a man.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be the big.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Piltdown Man?
Yes, that was it.
It was a fake.
Because somebody fused together bones of an ape and bones of a man. They finally able to decipher that. I forgot exactly why, but it's very...
Okay. So here, Rabbi Moloch. I don't remember his name before. Rabbi Moloch.
I don't know why I threw that in, but...
Rabbi Moloch B'Shem Rabbi should also tell you. Rabbi Moloch B'Shem Rabbi should...
It all depends on your intent. What? Medical procedure.
Rabbi Moloch B'Shem Rabbi Shimon Levi said, Nechlak Hamatim, what we call the Tyomis in the Bavli and the Yerushalmi is called the Matim. If the middle leaf is split, it's as if all the leaves have been separated from the lulav, and it's no good. That's in fact that the leaf, if you go and you check lulavim, so that's the middle leaf which is always checked to see if it's split or not, because if that one's split, it's as if most of them is split, and that's no good. Okay? Kapos Tamorim. The lulav is called Torah Kapos Tamorim. Rabbi Tarfon Omer Kapos Tamorim. Kabbalas Tamarim means that, as Rabbi Yehuda will explain in a minute, that you have to stick them together. They actually have to be, tied together tightly. Rabbi Akiva says, no, it's not necessarily what it means. He says that you have to have one lulav, and the lulav is called the kapos. He doesn't dash anything in. But Rabbi Yehuda, again, explaining, Rabbi Tarfon says, even nifrad yagder, it has to, kapos is language of kafus. Kafus means tied, right? So here it has to be all tied together.
That's what Tarfon says, kafus tomorrow, right?
Right. It's like kafus, right? Red kafus, right? What's the Tziniar Barzel which is kosher? Kosher the top of one leaf has to reach the bottom of the next leaf. That's the minimum. If they don't even reach the bottom of the next leaf, then that's no good. Okay? Tani, we learned Charus Psula, if a lulav is solid, the leaves are not yet differentiated. Obviously, it's a very young lulav, so it's possible. Domachos, if it just looks like they're together, but they're really distinct, that's kosher. Shimon Abba v'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Kidei Masnis, and this is the way to read our Mishnah. It should be not Kidei, as it says here in the Gemara, but Ukidei l'nanei bo kosher. Has to be the 3 tvachim plus enough to shake it, which one is going to say in a minute is an extra tefach. And that's why you pass the lulav has to be 4 tvachim long, not 3 tvachim. The other things are 3 tvachim, lulav has to be 4 tvachim, because that's 3 tvachim, that's a shiur plus another tefach to hold it, in order to shake the whole package, the whole bundle. Okay? Tani Adas Arova Shlosha. It's in the Brisa Adas Arova 3 tvachim, lulav arba, and the lulav is 4 tvachim. Tani learned Ba'amas Chamisha, Divi Rabbi Tarfon. It's an amma of 5 tvachim, according to Rabbi Tarfon. The Chalchoyim mean Ba'amas Shisha, it's an amma of 6 tvachim, which we measure these tvachim. Al Daited Rabbi Tarfon, according to Rabbi Tarfon, Pushkin Ravin, they're larger tvachim. Al Daited Rabbanim, Pushkin Tchikim, they're smaller tvachim. Now, the Bavli has a whole elaborate equation which Yerushalmi doesn't have, but I think Yerushalmi means as well, which is that according to Rabbi Tarfon, you take an amma which is 5 tvachim, and according to Tarfon, you take an amma which is 6 tvachim, divide it into 5, and then those tvachim are the ones you need in order to make a hadas or lulav and shiur, which is actually more than 3 tvachim, because 3 tvachim are 3 out of 6. But you're taking 3 out of 5, which fit into 6, which is somewhat bigger. I'm not sure exactly what the cheshbon is, but let's say it's really 3. Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what it is. 3/6 is normally 50% of an amma, right? Half an amma. But if you take the same amma, divide it in 5, and you require 3 of those, then it's 60% of an amma, so it's 10% larger. So according to Rabbi Tarfon, they're larger tvachim, right? So you need a hadas, which is 10% longer. And the Svar of Rabbanan is the exact opposite. If you take an amma 5 tvachim, and divide it into 6, and those are the tvachim you need, which actually makes them much smaller tvachim, right? Amma 5 tvachim divided into 6. So instead of being 3 tvachim, which is 60%, it actually comes out to be 3 tvachim, which is 50%. In other words, it's reducing it. Okay? So you don't have to know the math. We're going to come to it in the Bavli, and you wish you never heard of it before. But the bottom line is that they're different. They're different shiur and tvachim. Okay? Rabbi Hashem Nasiya said, lulav tefach. The lulav is a tefach, which of course is very strange. When lulav is a tefach. Rabbi Shimon Ben Levi said, Azov, the bush, the hyssop, used to sprinkle on a mitzorah who is purified, is also a tefach. Rabbi Zira said, or he asked, lulav tefach, Azov tefach, lulav is tefach, and Azov tefach, what are we talking about, right? So either he's asking his question or he's making a statement, now the Gemara is going to explain his statement. It's not germane which one. Rabbi Yosef, Kima Rabbi Simon. We can understand it's based on Rabbi Simon. Rabbi Chen, Rabbi Simon, B'Shem, Rabbi Shur B'Levi said, lulav tefach, he said a lulav is a tefach, an azov is a tefach, the hyssop is a tefach, a shomer is a tefach, a shalya, the minimum size of a fetus to be considered to be a true fetus is a tefach. Some say avdom and shlish is a third. No, we never had it before. Yerushalmi Mafto and Shlisha. You're right, I shouldn't have glossed over it, but I don't remember such a thing. Yerushalmi, some say, although here it says need on the side, so maybe it was there. Yerushalmi Afto and Shlisha Tefach, the third wall in the Sukkah is the Tefach as well, as we learned previously in Masechta. And on that, Rabbi Zira, boy, Lulav Tefach, Rabbi Zira explained, rather, I should say, Lulav Tefach, Milvad Shizra. Lulav, not all these things are the same. A lulav is a tefach besides its spine. Now it's in its spine of 3 tvachim plus an extra lulav tefach. Azov is a tefach chutzi yivon besides its twigs. In other words, it's a branch from a hyssop bush. So besides the branches which you use in order to sprinkle them, you need an extra tefach in order to hold it. As opposed to the other things mentioned here, that it's sufficient to have a tefach itself. The shofar, it only has to be a tefach. A little bit more, actually, because it has to stick out of your hand. But it only has to be a tefach, basically. And a shai only has to be tefach, basically. And the dov and shlish and the sukkah also basically only a tefach. Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Tavishem, Rabbi China, Rabbi Parach, and Rabbi Masab Shem, Rabbi Menashe Shem, Rav said, Lulav tefach, Levad, the same thing. Lulav is a tefach, Milvad Shizra, with the sides of the spine, Azov tefach, the Azov is a tefach, also Chutzi Yivol, besides the twigs. Hadas. Hadas HaGozel, the stone Hadas, Yovish, a dry Hadas, apostle is no good. Shalshev Sheidach, it's the same idea. If it comes from a worship tree or a say which is condemned, apostle is no good. Nikdem Rosh, if it's snapped, Nivitzu olive, or its leaves have been divided, or Shu'anova Miruvim Melav, or it's got more grapes. I've never seen Hadas with grapes, but they actually have grapes on them. You know why we've never seen them with grapes? Because the sellers take off the grapes. Because they make it bad. They're possible. On kosher, if you took them off, it's okay. And as long as there's less grapes and there are leaves, you can't do any yontif itself. Because that's like masaki and mon, it's like you're fixing the hadas. See, it says, that's how hadas is identified in Torah. What does that mean? Shanov of chayviness rubo, it's got to have leaves which cover it, the majority of the tree. Vaylakameen kliya, and they have to go up as if they are like a braid. That's where you get the concept of meshulish, right? They have to be intertwined on each level. They says, what's that? Zadas. That's what a hadas is. Says the more why it's a hadas. Inte marzesa, if you were going to see it's an olive branch. Vaylakameen kliya, it has several leaves on each level, but they ain't enough of chavis ruba. The leaves do not cover the twig. Itemer zarguna, another type of tree, another chavis is rubo. Yeah, well then you have the twigs covering its majority, but ain't ola kamin kalia. It doesn't go up as a braid. They says this. Never one has both qualities. Sadas. Chiyab, now getting back to the grapes. Chiyab B'Shem Lord said, Nashkiros Shonu. Only black grapes possible, the hadas. Lama. Ask more why. Is it Mishum Shein and Domos Lads? So it's because they do not look like the wood, and therefore they cancel out the wood, because they're black and the wood is green. Mishum Shenigmar Perior is because they are complete. In other words, they're fully mature, and since they're fully mature, so therefore, again, they're not tofel to the tree. They don't become subordinate to the wood, and they cancel out the wood. So, what's the difference if it's because of the color or because of their ripeness? I'll tell you what the nafkamin is. You can, let's say, it's a hadas type which only grows green. It doesn't grow black grapes. So in Mishum Shein Domus Leitz, we're going to say the Bible said it doesn't look like the wood and it cancels out the wood. Hare, this wood should either not be there, it should be Inun or Hain, which means they. Okay, because Hare and Hain Domus Leitz, so they're like the wood, and therefore it's okay. And the heavy loads Tama, it must be that if it's not good, even if it's the type of hadas which grows green grapes, it must be the low time of the law ela mishum shenigmar period. It's only because it's fully mature, and when it's fully mature, it cancels out the twig. Okay, arova. Harava Psula, it's stolen Harava, Vivesha, dry Harava Psula, it's no good. Shashem Sheridachas. If it comes from a Asherah tree, if you're Nidachas, Psula, Niktam Rosha, if it's cut, its leaves got split, fell off actually. No, they got cut off, split off from the main body of the, I guess they're partially severed. About tzaptifa, a willow is psula. Kimusha, if it's wilted, as they all rovers do. Or some part of its leaves have left it. So then, Vishalbal, or if it doesn't even grow on a riverbed, on a nachal, it grows in a hillside, Kshera, these are all kosher. Ksiv, it says, V'arvei nachal, and the rovers of the river, Eliel shall nachal, for which grow by the riverbank, Shabal, that which grow in a field which receives rainwater. Vishalarma grows in the hills. We now know that there goes wood. Tamulomar V'arvei. Now it's a question, in the Bavli it dashes from the word arve plural, but here it seems they're dashing from the extra vav. Because it says V'arve means even other types of rovos. As long as it's the same species, even if it doesn't grow specifically on a riverbank, that's okay. It says arve nachal, that's two. Arava lulav, he dashes one of them is for arava using lulav, and the other is arava using Beis HaMikdash. And what day would they use the aravas in the Beis HaMikdash? No. They put our rovas around them as beach.
Shoes.
Think sukkahs. Ay, Oshana Rabbo. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Of course.
That's why we use our rovas in Oshana Rabbo.
Right. Okay.
Rovas, see. Yeah.
A rovas is willow, right?
No.
Oh.
Our rovas is not a willow.
The myrtle?
It's a myrtle, yeah. No, myrtle is hadas.
Hadas, that's what I thought.
I'm not sure what the translation of it is. Maybe it is willow, but not a weeping willow.
Oh, because it says it can't be from the shiur tree. I said, well, how can it be from the shiur? It's not that type of leaf. I don't know.
A shiur is not a specific kind of tree. It's any tree which is worshipped.
Oh.
What type of tree do you think a shiur was?
I don't know. I thought.
No, a shiur is only a tree which is worshipped.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So name so once for the lulav used at home, and once for the lulav in the Beis HaMikdash. Now this is going back to Anakama, who says if you're dashing extra vav, so what about the nachal? What do you learn from nachal? So it says Pratlet Tzaftzafar. This precludes the type of, I said weeping willow, but I don't actually know what a Tzaftzafar is. I'm really lying. The Tzaftzafar is something, but it's not called Arve Nachal. It doesn't necessarily primarily grow on rivers. The Arava grows primarily in rivers. It happens to grow elsewhere as well. But then it grows in backyards in Chicago even. But the Arve Nachal, that the Tzaftzafar doesn't normally even go, it's not there to grow on the river necessarily, so it's no good.
I wonder if the Tzaftzafar is really like mimicking the sound of the leaves rather than the species.
That might be why it's called what it's called.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It has to be like probably a broad-leafed willow.
Mm-hmm. I don't know you're a botanist.
I'm not. I'm just conjecturing based upon the name.
It's not conjecture, it's also Torah. Okay. Okay. What's the top to the
You misunderstand them.
Vasliya can mean what's the top so far? There's something wrong with the gear, so here too many vovs and things. When they invent not too many vovs, too many hays. But hays top so far. Suya can mean mago psula. Whatever, I'm not sure what the actual. There's something wrong, but it's not germane. So it has a serrated leaf. That's no good. I think weeping willows do have serrated leaves. Yeah, they do. The Rava has a smooth leaf.
Okay.
And the Tafsal has a serrated leaf. Kamin Masak Shira, now it depends how it's serrated. If they go in and out like a scythe, it's possible. If they go like a saw, it's kosher. I forgot what the difference is. One of them goes, I forget which is which, one of them goes in and out like that, and the other goes like this. I think that's when it goes in and out, that's okay. Yeah, that's a saw. But when it goes like a scythe, which is like this, that's no good. And I think that's the way weeping willow goes. The serrations on a weeping willow are like this. Yeah, am I making sense?
You're making yourself clear. I don't know which is. We're not botanists.
Right. He's a real Rav of Sula. What's a Rav which is possible? Additionally, all our go, we kind of love one. If it has a round leaf and a white twig, he's a Rav Sure. What's a kosher Rav? All our roch, it has a long leaf, the kind of autumn and a red twig. That's what you're looking for. Okay, look at that. Rabbi Shmuel Omer. Sholosh hadasim v'shtei arovos. How many of each? How many things you need? Rabbi Shmuel says 3 hadasim and 2 arovos. Lulav echad, 1 lulav v'esrog echad. Now that's of course over is really paskin, but here it throws in a monkey wrench. By the hadasim, afilu shnaim ktumi, even if 2 of them are snapped, v'echad she'ero kotum, that's enough. You don't need to have all 3 whole. Two snapped and 1 whole is okay. Right, we time them after the shloshuk to me if they're all 3 snapped, that's okay. You don't need any of them whole. Rabbi Akiva Omer Kushem Shluv Echad Esrog Echad, just like you need only 1 lulav and 1 esrog. Kach hadas ach echad v'arova achas. So to the olds we need only 1 hadas and 1 arova. That's it. 1. Now, how do we learn all these things? Rabbi Shmuel Dorash. And Shmuel Darshan pre-Eitz Hador, it's all singular, Echad. Kapus Tamarim, Echad. It really says without above, it says Kapas. So it's 1. V'anaf Eitz Avos Shlosha, that's 3. Anaf Eitz Avos is 3. Arvinachal, that's plural, that's Shtayim, that's 2. Now, the next, we're actually going to finish a little bit early tonight, I think. But the next Gemara is a little bit cryptic. I shouldn't say a little bit, it's a lot cryptic. And here the Gemara says, but I'm going to try, and everybody has a field day here, trying to change the gears and making it fit. I'm going to try to do the minimum of changes. In fact, as a matter of fact, only 1 change of word I think will work out. But first, this line is like a medrash pliya. Everybody wants to say their own pshat in this line. Ushteit loyos achashena ktuma. You need 2 questions. Nobody knows even how to translate it. What's a dloya? And one of them shouldn't be broken. So I want to learn like the Mashbiach. I think the Mashbiach is very cute. The Mashbiach says, nobody said this pshat before him, and I have no reason to believe he's lying. That's a very, very cute pshat. He says, very often you find that you have a branch which breaks up further up. A branch of Adas, which breaks up, right? Starts off 1 and then it goes into 2.
Right.
And let's say one of them is kotum, one of them is snapped. So as long as the other one is not snapped, it's okay. Because they say that means that the branch is continuing up this way.
Right.
Even though this one's snapped. And that's what he says here it means. Shteit loyas achshei ktuma. He brings proofs etymologically that loya could mean a shoot. So if you have 2 shoots going to the same branch, all you need is 1 which is not kotum, and that's sufficient.
And it could be either one.
Either one, right.
That's going out, or the one that's straight.
Right. That's right, because we just regarded that was being nadas, which he says ma'asim shubuchayim were machshir. Says that was halacha that people were machshir. Just he never knew a source until he interpreted the Yerushalmi to be the source for that halacha. Okay. Now came back to Mishnah. Rabbi Tarfon Omer. I feel shloshim ketumi. Even all 3 are ketumi. Rabbi Mel Boy Kumi Rabbi Ami. Now again here everybody has a field day changing the gear, so I think I'll make it work in it pretty well, based on what I'm about to tell you. Right, remember boy kun Rabbi Ami. Kimada Rabbi Shmuel marba badas yarba b'shar meaning. Just like Rabbi Shmuel says by hadas that that you can have snapped ones, so too why can't you take the other ones and have them snapped? Right? Rabbi Shmuel says 2 snapped is good. Right? As long as one isn't snapped. So say by the other ones also snapped ones are good. Now, there's an important point to make here. Which is right. Obviously he thinks that according to Rabbi Shmuel you can even have all 3 snapped. He's not arguing qualitatively with Rabbi Tarfon. Because otherwise you wouldn't have a kasha. Right? He's saying so just like you take the hadas 2 snapped. So take all a rava snapped. Take an esrog snapped. Take a lulav snapped, the top snapped off. So his kasha is obviously predicated on his assumption that even Rabbi Yishmael holds that really that all 3 can be snapped. It was just giving, he's saying it's nice to have one which is not snapped. It's nice to have 1 whole and 2 not snapped, but not that he held it in essence it had to be that way.
So the difference between l'chatchila and b'diavad?
Yeah, kind of like that. That Rabbi Shmuel was saying, l'chatchila at least you should have one which is not snapped. But b'diavad, he understands it because Rabbi Tarfon. And that's what his mistake is. You think Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Tarfon? So see presently that even if it's snapped, it's still mahuder, and therefore it can work by everything else. Can't be. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, I'll prove to you now, because it says Rabbi Tarfon, afilu shloshtam tumim, even if they're all 3 snapped. So who's Rabbi Tarfon saying afilu to? To Rabbi Shmuel, who preceded him. Leis barnash amar afilu. The person doesn't say even ela du moida al kadmesa unless he concedes to the original statement but adds on to it. In other words, it's when Rabbi Shmuel says even, the David says afilu shloshim tumim, he's obviously arguing Rabbi Tarfon. He's saying, yeah, you said 2, but I say even 3. But Rabbi Shmuel himself doesn't hold the way. Rabbi Shmuel argues. He says only 2 snapped, 1 hadas may not be snapped. Now, I'm Rabbi Chagai, Kun Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Chagai said for I'm Rabbi Chagai, but Kun Rabbi Yossi. I asked in front of Rabbi Yossi, Taka, so what's the machlokas here? Ma ba Rabbi Tarfon, let's see about the Rabbi Shmuel. What's Rabbi Tarfon come to add Rabbi Shmuel? Amalesa said Rabbi Shmuel, the Kormei and Pei Moshe changed it here. Lo savar kotum hadar. Rabbi Shmuel's kotum is not hadar. Snapped is not proper, it's not mother. Rabbi Tarfon savar kotum hadar. So that's why Rabbi Shmuel said you must have 1 which is not snapped. Because it's not hadar otherwise. Rabbi Tarfon it says it's still hadar, so what if it's snapped? As long as it looks nice, what's the difference? So why can he even have why can he have 2 which are snapped and 1 not? Mimanav shach. Either it's hadar, in which case you could have all 3 snapped like Rabbi Tarfon, or it's not hadar, so therefore you shouldn't allow any to be snapped, right? Like even the 2. So the Gemara never addressed that, but I think I have a good svara for this. Listen to what I have to say and see what you think of this. What Rabbi Akiva, how do we know that you need hadar? How do you know that the Arabic meaning have to be hadar? That they have to be muhudar. That'd be especially splendid. Because what does it say in that pasuk?
It says Priyetz Hadar.
Priyetz Hadar. Priyetz Hadar. What's that going on? The esrog.
Yes,
Oh, that's right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Priyetz Hadar. Yeah, the kapos smarm is lula. So that wasn't clear. So the
Definitely not.
so the Priyetz Hadar. So I want to say like this. Rabbi Yishmael holds Priyetz Hadar is singular. That has to be hadar, right? So too, from every meaning you have to have 1 which is muhudar.
Okay.
Priyetz Hadar has to be muhudar. Kapos Mar has to be muhudar. Now, Anafei Tzavos also 1 has to be muhudar. But Arvei Nachli you can't say that. You know why? Because Anafei Tzavos, the way Rabbi Shmuel darshans, each word means a single hadas. Anaf is 1 hadas. Eitz is another hadas. Avos is the third hadas. That's how he dashed it. So I can see each one is a separate mitzvah. I could say each one can be, one of them can be mudar, and the other two don't have to be mudar. But by Aravos, what does it say? Arvei. I can't separate between the two. So by the Aravos, they both have to be properly mudar. So that's why that's why Rabbi Yishmael holds only by hadas can I say the distinction between one which has to be harder, because we learn from Esau you need at least one which is harder, and the other two which are separate mitzvahs which don't have to be harder, as opposed to our Ravos where they both have to be harder because it can't draw such a distinction. Rabbi Tarfon holds that all three can be snapped, because he holds all three have to be muhudar. He doesn't draw that distinction between anaf, eitz, and avos, but on the other hand, he holds that snapped can also harder, as long as it looks nice, it doesn't matter if it's snapped or not. So that, I think, is the machlokas between the sort of the machlokas between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Yasa, Katzok lach Rabbi Yasa came there and said, Chamsu mevachin hadasa. Interesting. In Bavel, it seems they weren't makbin a hadas meshulish. They weren't makbin. It's Takamasha away a little bit from the Bavli. It sounds like hadas meshulish was a new concept in Bavel. They didn't really have it, at some point. But so he says, Lo Rav hadasa. Why they pick which hadasa to use? V'lo Shmiya Damar Rabbi Simon B'Shem Rabbi Shimon Levi. V'lo Shmiya Rabbi Yasa did not hear that which Rabbi Simon said, Rabbi Shimon Levi, by Asher, the pasuk in the Chemia, by Asher Yashmiu v'yaviru kol. They should put out a voice b'chol ram. And it says there in the pasuk, although the rest of us not brought down here, but it's, of course, this being Yerushalmi, it's important. It says that they should bring, for Sukkah's time, it says that they should bring Alei Hadas and Alei Avos. So Carbonated brings that pasuk. It says bring Alei Hadas and Alei Avos, which is of course difficult because Hadas is Avos. So what does it mean? Bring both, right? V'lohi Hadas, v'lohi Eitz Avos, and it says bring both, right? How can you differentiate? Ella says the more it's a difference. Hadas l'sukkah v'Eitz Avos lulav. For the sukkah, for the schach of a sukkah, you can use hadas even if it's not meshulish. Even if it doesn't have three leaves on the same level. But for the lulav, you need to have avos, braided. And braided means that you have three leaves on the same level. So that's why, it's Israel, they check which hadas in Dubai. Rabbi Zira have a takala. Rabbi Zira pronounced this in public. That's one interpretation. He pronounced it in public with a tkiyah. Everybody should know this, because Rabbi Zira is also Babylonian, came to Eretz Yisrael. So he made a big pronouncement, or else it means taka belibo, that he pushed it into his heart to make sure he remembers that to take the proper hadas meshulish, for the mitzvah of lulav on Sukkot, and we will stop here for this evening.